All right, let's start now. Thanks again to all of you for joining in. And good morning, Hussein. Good morning, Ranjit.
Good morning, Manoj.
Uh, Ranjit, did you join yesterday also? You're joining in today.
No, yesterday I missed to join, so
Okay,
today I joined.
all right, no worries. I'm sure you must have received the recording for yesterday from the team.
Yep. Yes, I yesterday I got that recording of that yesterday session,
Okay.
and I go through it. So I have one query also. So yes,
Sure, we'll address this sometime towards the end of it.
definitely.
Uh, Sorry, what you were saying?
Yeah, definitely we can.
All
Yes,
right, all right. So, yeah, I mean, as you must have went it through it, we revolved around more of generic, details around Boomi, what Boomi has been able to resolve, as in today's landscape integration challenges, why Boomi sort of introductory things around a little bit around the platform and what is the content, what is the curriculum which we are going to be running through across this particular course content and the duration. So that's what we revolved around yesterday. And today, what we are going to be doing is we will get a little more into details on the platform side. We will see quite a few things on the admin side. How do we create the users? How do we create the environments? A little few more things around the platform. Just some shuffling over there. All right, and just to get a little bit on your background, Ranjit, do you want to share like what all exposures you have in the past, and um, what's what is your expectation, and what is that your source of getting into this particular curriculum, learning activity, and you know things around it. So it would be good to know.
yep. Okay, so myself, Ranjit Kumar. So I have 8 years of experience in IT industry. So my primary role is handling that EDA process and come integration side.
Mm-hmm.
So for the EDA, we mostly use like that mapping, designing, development,
Mm-hmm.
and deployments using a different tool, which is right now we are using CData or.
Okay.
And for that integration, I am a PHP developer. I'm using a Laravel for that third-party integration side.
Okay.
So the main issue, I mean that the current tool which we are using for the EDA. So in a day, we have almost use 100,000 to 200,000 of data
Mm-hmm.
in daily basis. So in that huge volume of data, it facing some slowness and having some issues regarding for that high volume data. In
Okay.
that alternative, while I'm searching for the tool, so I got notice like there is a Dell Boomi. So and as well as in that other side of in my career, so it will be helpful huge a lot because in LinkedIn and other job portal while I'm searching for the Dell Boomi, so got almost huge job opportunities. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
from last 3 4 years. So
Understood.
then I decided, okay, it will help a good fit for that the product as well as for my career.
Mm-hmm.
So that's purpose. I jumped in this course.
Understood. 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 All right. So yeah, I mean, welcome on board, and hopefully your, I mean, you'll be able to take max out of it to implement in your current challenging scenarios, and get this particular tech added to your stack as well.
Yep.
Uh, Hi Karthik. I'm not very able to recall if you were part of the yesterday's session or you're joining in today.
Yeah, actually, I was unable to join yesterday. So I
Okay.
have been.
All right. All right. So have you got these recordings from yesterday from the team and went through it?
Yeah, I have got it and gone through that thing.
All right, great. And do you mind sharing a bit about yourself, like what exposure you carry and what is your basic expectation out of this course and what brought you into the learning track of Boomi integration space? It would
Yeah,
be good to know that side of yours.
yeah. The myself Karthik. Actually, I'm currently working on the Dell Boomi itself.
Okay.
I have done a 2 years of experience on this Boomi integration, but I require a much more exposure to things which we have been. So I'm looking forward. I need to grab the multiple things. Like let's take an example.
Mm-hmm.
If you are using in a map function or something, it can be used as in a multiple ways. Not only in the map function, we can solve it. For example, I will give an example like if you want to send in a default value as in a null
Mm-hmm.
in the map function, we can set as a default value.
Right.
Instead of that, instead of the setting there, we can click inside that while creating an object itself. We have an checkbox there. Like if you click on that checkbox,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't require to set in a null value there instead of the thing. So the different way of approaching I was expecting from this course,
Okay.
how the multiple ways we can handle the things,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of things I was expecting. And the basic things why I'm pretty good,
Okay.
and I'm looking forward the expert level things.
All right. All right.
This is
More
looking,
details. More
yeah,
details. Needed. I
more
get it.
details expecting from this.
I get it. I get it. All right. Good. Uh, Good to know that perspective from your side. Jumping quickly on to today's content, as I was mentioning, we will dive a little more deeper into uh, Umi platform today. We will see few more options. We will run around between, build, deploy, and process supporting tabs. See few more options. Dive a little bit into the admin sides. We try to create an environment and, Atom side of it, and quite a few options around there. That's what we will try to cover up today, so that we have a little understanding of the platform or of the different options we have in hand before we try to uh, start create any sort of integrations or any sort of those activities maybe in the coming week. Okay, let me share my screen quickly, and someone please confirm if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you for confirming. So this is the platform I have already logged in. Uh, we will run around the and like we have been discussing yesterday, these are the different services which Boomi has provided us. We will get along into different of these services as the duration grows, as the course grows. Details of MDS, details of API management, event streams, task automation, and uh, the B2B side of integrations as well. But to begin with, because integration services is the most usable service or is the most critical core of our daily in and out activities, because that's where we build the integration. So let's
One thing,
yeah.
what is the major difference between the six thing? Let's take an example. The integration can be applied in the API management and those kind of thing. What
Sorry,
is the major
can you repeat again?
the things which you have shown there, the integration, API management,
Mhm.
and those kind of things, master data. What is the major difference? Oh,
Between all of the services you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah, all of the services.
Okay. So if you take it that way, I would say there is one core, which is the integration services, where primarily you're going to be building your integrations, whatever requirement for the project you have, whatever integrations you're going to be building, that is the integration core service. uh, Ahead, or linked with that, you can run your API management services, where you will design your APIs, you will govern your APIs, you will get more the admin perspectives of your API services, of your endpoints of API, which has been either exposed by you or by some other third party. Let's say you're using some of the APIs from Apple or from any other source for for whatever reason or integration. But when you start to build those integration using those APIs, you will have more admin perspective controls when you get into API management. But ultimately, even when you provide your endpoints, you will create your governing factors and all those things. The backdrop where the integration is happening, where the integration is placed, it is going to be again involving integration core service, because actually your integrations are being built here. Whatever integration you have built, that is what you're going to link over here in your, let's say, REST call or SOAP call or OData call, on any kind of those calls or activities. But the integrations are built here. They're getting to be being used over here in API management, or for any other activities as well, services as well. Even if you get in the flow side, you try to build your different applications or a particular flow, that when this particular thing happens, you will run this kind of scenario, and this happens, you will run this kind of scenario. But ultimately, whatever the steps you have in hand, whatever the activities you plan to perform, you will build an integration for that, and those integrations are built within the integration core. So your backbone integration, that is you're going to be building under integration services. On top of that, whatever you plan to do in your exposed layers, that is what you do in all the other services. So like even in an event streams. Event stream is something basically where you're creating an event. You're telling, okay, or you create your producer and consumer kind of processes, where at the first hand you create your scenario or process, where you just pick the source data, you put that into some, for example, understand it like a queue or an event. And there is another process where you, either through listening activity or kind of one-to-one fetch, you pull the data from there and then perform your activities. So there is event stream controller, which you get under event streams, where you get more admin perspectives to do things around, to create your publish and subscription models, or keep it like an end-to-end, one-to-one, point-to-point queue, or whatever different options, criteria you will have. That control you will get under here. But again, your backbone integrations, whatever you plan to do, whatever you have planned to fetch and perform, or like transform and do business validations and all those activities, those integrations are built under integration. So basically, your backbones are sitting here. On top of that, whatever you plan to do, whatever controls, admin things you have added, proxies, things you have created, that is going to be performed under all these different services. So additional controls, admin controls, more requirement related actionable things, you will get to do under different services, but backbones sit under the integration core service, is somehow I'll try to relate to your question.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So jumping back to the integration services as the core, and like we have seen yesterday also, in different tab options. So again, we'll try to run a few more options around here. And if you understand it this way, we have three category of sections under here. First is the build, which is your, which gives you the canvas where you create, play around through different shapes and logics. You create your integrations, you create your logics, you try to serve your requirements over here, whatever you have from any sort of clients, for transformations, for validations, for widgets rules and all those activities. And then post that, and this canvas also gives you the opportunity to test as well. This is a simple process from the process library, nothing that I've created yet, but this gives the options to test as well from the unit testing perspectives. You get to do those things here along. And then on the deploy side, on the deploy tab, that gives you the capabilities around deployment options. So like we were discussing, or we talked through it yesterday also. You create your packages, which where we'll get probably deep dive further later. Like how do we create, what are the different options we do. But for example, if you have this particular integration in hand, you have created you have done your unit test and all, you can simply just go around, create your package, give any sort of naming conventions, and do those things around. Or maybe you can create a package like by by selecting multiple things as well. So maybe let's say you have 4 processes to be moved together, and kind of those scenarios. You can use all those. You can select all those 4 different processes or any other component and create a single package out of it. And then once that your package is being built, uh, that gives you an capability to move it across 2 different existing environments to deploy. So you can move that to your sandboxes, QA, UAT, and all those different set of environments. And from there on, you can have your different test cycles run over at different environments, and take on any sort of changes if you inquire in between and all those activities. Um, Integration packs we'll get along later. Then this is again very crucial part of any project cycle, typically from the debug perspectives, and that's something like we have been uh, talking yesterday also. This is something which is from which very highly people are benefited. Different stakeholders, different organizations who have come out of legacy integration platforms, they found this something very useful for their day-in-day-out scenarios, because this is one space where you have got all the options for your logging capabilities. So like under the process reporting, you get all your executions. You have your landscape, your platform has executed, in different time frames. So you have options to select multiple time frames over here. You can give your specified date ranges and time. So maybe let's say if you wanted to select or figure out your executions in specific time frame, like between 11:20 to 11:40, something like that. That's all you can plug in here and do. You can give your options around atom specific to find those executions process, and then specific execution IDs. So at times, as a standard practice, what we do is when we create integrations and when we create our error mechanism scenarios, we also try to send execution IDs within the error notifications or error emails we are sending out, so that if some error is being figured out or being notified to a stakeholder, and they want some specific action to be performed on it, or debugging activity to be done or something around it, they can send that particular notification or the specific execution ID to the respective teams to get on this particular execution and do things around. So to track a specific execution, this is something very critical and it helps. And then there are execution modes which you can select to figure out and just to look on those particular integrations. Typically, how does this helps is, so let's say you're testing or you're trying to figure out some activity based on certain listeners. So very recent scenario, I was working on some JCO, SAP JCO listener, which is basically, it's something like some activities performed on the SAP side, and when some orders or something like that is being processed and kind of ready to be sent out, it basically sends the file to Boomi and Boomi kind of listens it directly. So that kind of activity happens on that listener, and there was some issue, we were not able to receive the files and all. So what this particular feature kind of helped us, where we select our listener execution, and it basically gives you a list of all the listeners you are having over here in this particular platform or account in a particular time frame. So it filters out a lot of other unwanted executions which you don't want to look at this point because of some specific debug. That's what you get out of these capabilities here. If you see more around here, so you also have the option to execute processes from here. Let's say you're testing in different cycles and you have just performed some debug, you have performed some deployment, and you want to run a specific execution right now. You don't want to wait for the schedule of it. So from here on itself, you can select the atom where do you want to execute it and select the process and directly call it out from here. It used to happen earlier before this option came in picture, that you need to go back to the atom management page, and from there you used to execute it. But having sitting in the logs, this gives a good capability to run a particular integration from here. Then auto refresh, which just keeps on refreshing your executions here. These are different other options here, like error, pending successes. So you can just click on those and see specific list of type of status based execution. So if you go to errors, all the executions which has errored out in past 1 hour for let's say selective atom will appear here. If you go to pending, it will give you a list of all the ongoing processes, and similarly for the success scenario. And then once you have all the executions, you have some executions here. You can check, you will see more values sitting under these kind of columns. You see here, like elapsed time, which tells you how much time the execution has taken. In and out tells you what all documents had went across, or number of documents that has went out or that came in. Error message, if something has failed, it will give you an error message. Atom tells you what atom it was executed, and kind of all those scenarios. Then if you go to this particular drop down under executions, you see two different other options, documents and trading partner. Trading partner option goes more around the EDI and the B2B functionalities. So probably we will go more into detail when we go around the B2B or EDI integration set. But this is very, very helpful and very informative for people who work on those side of projects, because if you get onto this side of option, you get a very, very detailed information here for all the executions or for all the data sets which has just went in the transaction. So we'll get more on that side once we get onto EDI. If you get on the documents side of it, again, it is very helpful to basically track down certain specific documents. So for example, let's say you are working for a logistic project and you have processed certain orders maybe 20 days back. They were supposed to be reaching out in maybe 10 days of time frame, but it has been raised that they haven't reached until yet to their destinations. And you needed to go back and debug what happened with that particular order, or what has went through. So out of your hundreds, thousands, or thousands of thousands of executions running in daily, it's pretty hard to go back into logs and figure out what has where your particular execution is. So to bring those problems to ease, there are different things over here, like you can track from execution ID, like I was saying, in the case of notifications or information. It depends on the way you have designed your processes, but you can send execution IDs as notifications on alert. If you have that, you can search through that way. Otherwise, the best way to do is if you have incorporated tracking fields with your integrations, you can make use of that. You can just select your tracking ID over here and give that value. So like your particular shipment order, something like that, you give that value tracking field here and you click apply. So that will track down your particular execution from maybe last 25 days, and that's the only execution that will turn up here to showcase. And thereafter, you can get along into that particular execution to figure out, what has happened to the execution, if it has failed or if it has sent the exact details to the particular end system, which went fine. And based on that, you can, take on further actions or inform the respective stakeholders. Different other options here, like you can select, data sets based on connector type. So let's say you want to figure out what is happening with a particular connector end system. So let's say Salesforce. What is happening with the Salesforce updates in past 1 hour, because you knew that there are some ongoing issues with the Salesforce. It has been down for some time in kind of scenario. You can just go back, click, select the Salesforce and click apply. So all the updating actions which has happened on Salesforce side will turn up here, and it will showcase how many of those has failed, how many of those has went for a success, and kind of all those activities you can analyze and gaze from it. So that's more around the process reporting part of it. And like I have been mentioning, because of all these different options we have in hand here, it gives a great managing control to any sort of, I would say, any person who's engaged in a project, to gain that control on the logs and figure out and analyze that sense what is happening with the current set of transactions, is if everything is running smooth or if there are any failures, and based on that gaze into if any activities, any side, any debugs are required, if any specific needs are there to go back on the infra side or your molecules or atom side to figure out if any actions are needed there, kind of all those scenarios. So it pretty much helps on those perspectives. And the four, so that's around build, deploy, and manage sections. The other options you see here is around the dashboard, which gives a more detailed control around how as an account perspective, as an overall this particular account, how things are flowing, how much documents are flowing in, day out, how many documents we are receiving, what are the different atoms we have, what are the different errors we are getting. So overall consolidated picture for your account is something we get under the dashboards. It is more from the admin perspective. It is more from the perspective where, maybe some project manager or some kind of person who is on those roles who have the responsibility to gaze more around account level things. For those kind of people, it is very helpful. So it has 3 dashboards to run into: account dashboard, HTTP status dashboard, and real-time dashboard. It gives you, capability more around those. So let's say, let's run from here. Account dashboard. So we went to account dashboard. There's nothing over here because there is nothing we have executed in this particular account right now. But just to give you a glimpse, what it tells, basically, you can toggle between your different accounts you have. There are scenarios when particular organization is having multiple accounts. So in that case, multiple accounts will appear here, and you can, shuffle between them to uh, gaze into different of these aspects. Then you can select your environments as well. But overall, as a consolidated picture, it will give you a list of, your out of the league items here, which are down or offline for some reasons. Maybe they're having some issues from the infra side, or they're down for some system updates, or for any of those activities. If there are items, molecules which are down, you can get a quick list of those over here in the account dashboard. And I'll tell you where in what kind of scenario it is very helpful. So I have been on projects where uh, there have been molecules, there have been 14 to 15 items, running over, sitting over, because lots of integrations were running in that project landscape. So they had a lot of executable spaces, molecules, and atoms running over. And to keep a gaze from admin perspective on of everything, from the item management phase, it was a little cumbersome. It was a little hard to go over there and understand what is happening on all your different atoms. In those kind of scenarios, the account dashboards, is pretty handy, because when you get over here, you get a list of what all items are offline, and accordingly you can take your calls, what needs to be done on particular of those, which is the most prioritized one where you need to do something. And then similarly, all your pending executions on different items running right now, uh, your errors that has taken up or occurred in in different atoms and different integrations. You can select your time frames again here. It gives you options to select between 1 hour, 6 hour, 12 hours in one day. So you can select over here, and it will give you a list of those errors within that particular time frame. Execution time count is something very handy for admin folks and infra set of people to keep a gaze when is the time when your maybe atoms are reaching at the max of it. Because when the execution count has went pretty high, obviously when you have set it up your integration, set it up your atoms, you must have analyzed a throughput that, okay, based on whatever uh, hardware requirements or hardware setup we have done today, uh, maybe this is the peak. If we reach over there, uh, from there we would start to see some problem areas. So obviously every hardware has a limit, based on your RAM and ROM and memories you have in place. There would be some end or some threshold for sure where it will uh, start to be at the top and start to phase out, that there is no disk space from here on right now, or no internal memory to read. So your execution count track is something which helps you in those scenarios when you have started to reach your executions pretty high, that's where you can go back and start to look over. Or this gives you another perspective as well, that it gives you a learning, track from a account level perspective to tell that, okay, the inbound set of documents, inbound set of information has started to increase pretty much. So uh, uh, it gives you a head start to, plan your things around when you, let's say, again, it gives you different time frames: 7 days, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then a max, which is like a all-time high. So you can get into different time frames and understand, okay, let's say you select 1 month and you figure out this was the set of uh, uh, counts of integrations you were running in past 1 month, and then when you get to 7 days, you see an equivalent amount of executions you have done. That that raise some alarming bells for you to keep a track on your hardware sets, and things are running for you. So overall, from an account perspective, from an admin perspective, these are different features which gives a great insights, and have keeps you on a head start position to plan out things well and early, if you're reaching on your top of the hardwares, of the molecules, or the atoms, like, which you have in your executable space. Similarly, on the execution count, you have throughput MB, which tells you, the data sets which you have processed. It tells the content in MB, like this is the amount of data you have executed in past 1 year, past 6 months, 1 month, or 7 days. It tells you, and again, based on that, you can run your calculations, you can run your analysis to figure out that your throughput has increased in last 1 month or 7 days or something, and you can plan out your hardware requirements, or maybe scheduling things based on that. Or you can try to figure out that there are different other approaches probably you need to take in your designs and something like that. Again, this is the document count. So what we have over here is the execution count, but count is something which will tell you the number of documents which you have processed in your specified time frames here. So from an account level perspective, from management perspective, these are the numbers which comes into picture at times. Some stakeholders are asking, okay, how many documents you have processed in like past 1 year, month or so. And that's more of when this comes into picture. Uh, Execution count and throughputs are something very critical, and those are more helpful in keeping a healthy gaze at your executable spaces, be it an atom, be it a molecule, and that it helps you to foresee, or gives you a head start to plan your things out very early, to analyze, and to execute, to understand those scenarios well in advance and plan out accordingly. So that's around those. And when you from here, where you can select your different environments, specific, uh, these options will be filtered out to your specific environment, and that gives you more granularity to understand understand health of your particular environment and the atom, and what is happening, how are the executions, how many throughput, how many uh, uh, MBs of data you're running in, and to understand again if you're approaching your near top, or you still have resources available to continue to. So this is where it is, very helpful. And then if you run to HTTP status dashboard, uh, this is pretty good for the scenarios where you're making HTTP calls. It will give you all the summaries status wise, like all the different status you have in hand, all the 200s, 400s, 500s, and all those scenarios. You will get a list of all those activities here, and how much time they have taken, what time they have came across, what time they have executed, and all those scenarios. It is again, pretty helpful to keep a gaze, on what all activities you have performed on certain HTTP calls, or if they are running healthy, if there are any timeout scenarios, if they are running into any specific kind of errors, you can uh, get down here and you can understand, okay, if this has been a trend or it is just a one-off scenario and kind of activity. So from a health perspective, from a debug error scenarios perspective, these dashboards are pretty helpful. You can get along here and understand if some trends are happening or otherwise overall health is fine, but it's certain one-off scenarios, and accordingly you can try to go back and rerun or maybe resend all your particular data sets and things around it. And then third one is real-time dashboard. Again, it will give you more details around all the real-time integrations you're doing, execution status, again, more around your 200, 400 kind of statuses, average response time. This is very critical. I have ran into projects where it was typically called out from the client that they want response times to be pretty quicker, irrespective of whatever set of transformations you're doing in your particular integration, but they are looking for quicker response time. Like uh, uh, as soon as you have received the file in certain scenarios, irrespective of your transformations, they just want to know if you have received that or not, and kind of scenarios. So this is pretty important from those perspective. This particular dashboard gives you a overall picture for a particular account level. So maybe let's say if you're having a project where you're doing different real-time integrations, this space will give you a picture to come back and see your response time for different real-time scenarios you're doing, for different endpoints maybe you're trying to hit at. And likewise, all the process summary report, what all has went through, what all has went success, failed, and all those scenarios will turn up here. You have different filter options here, like timeframes, environments, or your specific processes you can call out. So like maybe you have 10 different processes running in your account, but there is some specific process you want to be looking at and gaze at and figure out the health over here. You can select the process, and all these specific details will be filtered out for that particular process. So it will tell the response time for that process, execution status, and reports for that particular selective process. So these are the different options around the dashboards, and these are very helpful again from admin perspective, from a perspective where you're sole owner of the of the project space or the account space, and you are someone who wanted to take the overall gaze at the health of the account, of the health of the real-time integrations or the HTTP calls you're doing. So these are the options where you can come back and get a more consolidated picture around those requirements and those health option scenarios. You might have related, or you might want to relate this with the process reporting as well, but you will not get everything in the process reporting tab directly being called out. You might do a couple of things around there, and you can still figure out certain other things over there. But this is a space where you get consolidated, information from all those perspectives. So like if you understand the average response time, you won't get this particular value response time outputs in the process reporting tab directly. But over here, it is directly categorized to be looking at, and similarly at the account level as well. There are different options which are pretty handy, directly categorized over here to be looked at, and you don't get all of that under the process reporting tab. So which is why, this dashboard options are very critical from an account level perspective. All the options we have covered here under integration service. Let's try to go back. Okay, let's try to understand more from the user information perspective and the account level. And then we'll go back at some, we'll create an environment as well. So, every time, I'm sure you must have seen this also, or you must have gone back and, tracked some of your information here also. Under settings, there are two options, at your user level and account level. If you go at any of those, it basically brings you to the same spot. Under settings for your accounts, options you're seeing here depends on what roles you have been provided while your account was created. We will take a look at that just in a bit, but you might be seeing little lesser options in your corporate accounts. So don't get baffled by it. It depends on the access levels given to you. So there are different options, categories you have in here. My user settings, it basically revolves around your specific account that has been created. Then information at the account level access, and different other things, which we'll just take a look. When you get to user information, it gives you, this basic demographic information, your passwords, email, and your basic demographics, first and last name kind of thing. You can go back and change your passwords here from here as well, and otherwise from the main landing page if needed. You can change your email addresses here as well. I don't suggest though, because that's how your account has been created already. Your email alerts. All right. So this is something, where you can subscribe yourself to receive all the errors which are occurring in the project landscape. So what happens right now, if you need to see certain errors, basically what you do is you go back to process reporting, and from there you see what all errors has been occurring. But as a practice, as a debugging approach, what you can start to do is you can subscribe yourself to different error categories over here. So if you click the Add Email Alert tab, it will ask you options to select an account. Depending on if you have different accounts under your name or not, you will get options here. And then log level information, if you want to be receiving all information and warnings as well, or just the errors. We will understand these different categories when we get along in different shapes along the course curriculum. Or some of you have idea already, but for now, let's understand the error side. So we want to receive only errors, and then event type. You want to, so different events here happening at different levels, which tells, so atom status is basically if you want to be getting notifications only for the atom status when your atom is getting down, when it is up, when it is in some stuck state, all those kind of notifications. You can subscribe to this. If you want process level notifications, you can subscribe to process execution. On that, you will receive notifications from the process level activities only, so process level errors only. And then user notifications, basically what all notifications you have created, and custom level or at the user level, that's what it happens. That's what you will subscribe over here. But most of the time it happens that you will end up doing selecting all, and once you click OK over here, after you have selected an account, you will see entry created over here. And after that, every time after a 15 minute or something like of its duration, you will receive, certain error alerts, certain atom level alerts within your email account. So basically, it polls these errors on the platform, and will create notifications and send out to you to be directly looking at the those emails. So in those scenarios, what happens is you need not to get into Boomi every time to figure out what all error has occurred. You can just keep a tab on the alerts you are receiving, and accordingly you can figure out what action needed to be performed. So you will get all errors happening. You can just take a look at those and you can figure out what is the topmost priority, and based on that you can plan out what needs to be looked at first most, or what needs to be done for bringing the atom back. Likewise, you can take your calls, but it send all of your alerts at your email basically to be more proactive and alert over there. Then authentication, it gives you two-factor authentications to be added on your current authentication thing. API tokens we'll get back sometime later. This is basically around Atomsphere API usage. So everything you're seeing under this platform, Boomi platform, we are using the graphic user interface right now, more of configurable things, but everything of this is API exposed, and you can do lots of things around it, these capabilities as well. So I'll give you an example. There was a project I have done in the past where I was interacting between Salesforce and SAP. Salesforce was being used by a lot of field service representatives who basically goes out in the field and do a lot of things around, and a lot of other folks. So there are like thousands of people who depends on those integrations, but we cannot give access to everybody to Boomi to go back into process reporting and understand, okay, this has failed and this hasn't, something like that. So it was like not everybody was aware if some execution has failed and why this order has not processed, why this information hasn't reached to SAP and things around it. So what we did is we basically created a dashboard in Salesforce, which was a replica of process reporting. We accessed the process reporting APIs and brought all the information you see or we have been seeing just a bit back, like all the error informations, all the time lapse, what time it has taken, all the input output document counts, timestamps, process names, and all those activity, all the detailed logs as well. Everything of that we have taken out from those APIs and brought that into Salesforce side in that particular dashboard. And because everybody has access to Salesforce, so people can go back into Salesforce and track if their expected integration has went fine or not, or if it has errored out in something like of those scenarios. So they basically got a good visibility of those executions without being getting into the Salesforce. So that's one example, but yeah, that gives the capability by using this Atomsphere API to do a lot of more things around using all the features which you are using just by the GUI right now. Very helpful feature again. Preferences, let's leave it for now, but this gives you certain options, like if there are some test features or beta features coming in from Boomi, you can select over here to try it out early, or maybe just go by the planned schedule. Like you can, a lot of other options, like you will see automatically restore your previous option open components. You can click and select based on your local requirements. So this is more of your individual preferences, which you can achieve, nothing more of account level. Then we get to account level, you get basic information, again, demographic information about your account, or name, what roles you have and all. Features, this is more around the account level. So component locking, if that has been enabled or not. Component locking is like providing capability to ensure not many people can work with the same component at the same time. So when let's say I have started to work on a component, it will be logged, and if you start to you go back on the same component and try to edit something, it will give you an alert that this is logged right now and you need to ask for the access before you start doing it. So it is good in the workspace when multiple folks are working on the same project, and there are chances when they might open the same component at the same time. So similarly, different other options over here, advanced environment, we'll get more detail into it later. But yeah, at the account level, this gives you more features and more controls. Licensing, I think someone was asking about the licensing yesterday, but this is one landing page where you get more features around it. You'll get a list of whatever available licenses you have, how many are consumed, uh, under what category, like under test category or under production category. So if you see over here in this list, there are certain test licenses, test connectors, and there's certain which are not named anything. So these are production ones. So you have a list of what is deployed, what are available, and kind of those things over here. And different other options like cloud usage, API usage. It will tell you how many of those licenses are being used over there. Under these below options, it will tell you more granularity, like a particular license is being used at in what atom and at what process level. So there might be scenarios that it happens more often that your test licenses or maybe production one, you have used that in some debug process, you have deployed that to some integration, and then you didn't undeploy it, you have sent it as it is. So it is basically eating up one of your licenses right now. And just to understand where you are using, where it has been consumed, these options are pretty handy from an admin perspective, from a developer perspective as well. You can get back here, and if you have reached to a level where your licenses are consumed, you can come back here and figure out, okay, where all I am using my connectors, where it is getting consumed, and if there are certain spots which are unnecessarily being utilized, and you can free up. That's what you can gauge from here. Publisher, let's leave it for now. User agreement, let's leave it for now. User agreement management is something where you create your users. One you see here right now, if I needed to create, I will just click on it, plus sign, give email addresses, first name, last name. And these are some basic level of accesses which I can give over here to provide the different roles I can give to that particular user. So some basic default ones, some administrative labels one, some production support specifics, and kind of those things. Everything of this is having different roles, different options, different access levels. Uh, so if we get to it, you see this is having an administrator role. And under this category, you can see what all accesses it have. So because it is an administrator, it has everything right now at this point. But if we change it to something else, this list will be filtered out accordingly. It will have a lesser selective list over here. Custom roles, you can create your custom roles. You can outside of the standard roles available, we can create our standard roles, and that's what we can assign to different individuals. So let's say I create a role for just UAT. They have, if somebody is having access to just the UAT environment and nothing else, they don't have access to even build side of capabilities, only to process reporting and all that. That's what I can come back here and create a role. I can name it something and give a standard access, and post that I can give more privileges or selected privileges. And similarly, some of the things here as well. So custom things we can build, and once completed, they will appear over here, in this particular list of the scrolling down. And from here, you can select that and apply to a particular user. So that's how we do the user management, token management, these things. Let's leave it for the future. They will get more into picture when we are doing some of the real-time scenarios or some of the HTTP calls, or we'll get more on the API management side of it. SSO options, it gets in many organizations where single sign-on are the options enabled. So this is in those organizations where you enable this and align with those single sign-on options. So by logging in into your org level accounts or Microsoft level accounts, you're able to get down into your Boomi accesses as well from these options. Different security features we'll get later. Libraries, again, good feature. So there are times when you're trying to connect to a new type of connector, and it is needed that to establish a clean connection or to establish correction with the most updated version of it, you needed to upload certain of the library files. So that's what you do from this particular option. You kind of upload the files from here and all that. Developer, leave it for now. Document tracking is something like I've been mentioning or showing in the process reporting tabs. You have a list of tracking fields which you can create from here. Let's say I give a tracking field value PO number, and another I give something like shipment number, for example. Just leave it. So these are the tracking fields which I have created over here, and these will be available across the platform, across the account now. So whatever integration you create, these are the available tracking fields now. It depends on your integration requirement if you use them or not, but these are the available standard or the basic fields for the account level now. Within your integrations, you can go back and start to add your tracking fields where you will select this particular field and you will assign a profile against it, whatever source or end system connector you are sitting at. We'll see how do we apply the trackings later on, maybe sometime next week, but this is how it is being achieved over here. That's a lot of options around the item management side of it. If we go back to services again and let's close this. What else we should be seeing? Let's get to the item management side of it. Quickly run over it. So right now we don't have any requirement here. I mean, any environment or any item configured here. Let's quickly try to run through it and see how do we create that, and a couple of options there. Basically, when you create your environment or create your atom, you are creating your executable spaces. You're creating your bundles and spaces there, where your integrations will run, where your different other activities will take place. That's what you're building over here right now. So let's do it. Let's try to create an environment. You can do it from here, add your first environment, or you can click on this plus new sign as well. Let's build it from here. You get environment classification option between test and production, and you can relate it back to the licensing tab where you were seeing some test connections and some production connections. So selecting the option here will relate it back to the licensing page, and the deduction of the licenses will happen based on the classification you have selected over here. So let's select test for now. Anything you're selecting test and any consumption happening on your licenses will happen on the test licenses after this. Let's call it test environment. Okay, now you see one value appeared here, test environment, and a lot of other things you're seeing over here now. Your test environment ID, classifications, different roles which you can provide over here. We'll get more detail onto this side when we get onto admin in detail, but then environment extensions and all those things. Before we get into that, let's try to create an atom as well. So let's get to this particular option, plus new, select atom. We don't have any, so you see a couple of options, set up preferences in the cloud and local. Local is something which you create within your premise options, within your premises infrastructure, your local machines or your local VM machines. In the cloud is something being maintained by Boomi itself, and you can make use of those executable spaces. So we don't have anything local right now. We'll make use of the cloud. You have different clouds available, like production cloud and the test cloud, and also it depends at times on the regional clouds available as well. So because we have created the test environment, so let's select the test cloud. Let's give some name, test Atom, call it for now. Select OK. That gives you confirmation that this has been created. Let's close it. Because I have clicked the OK twice, so it has created two of those. Okay, so now when you go back to this atom, you see different other options. But first thing which we needed to do is we needed to attach this particular atom to a particular environment to generate the capabilities of deployments and different other options. So how we do that is you go to your environment, and now under the attachment you see available atoms. There was nothing available earlier because there were no atoms, but now because you have two unattached atoms, you are seeing a list over here. If you select one of it, it will just appear in the attached atom list now. Just a bit maybe. All right, so now when you go back to this particular environment of yours, you see the atom is attached under it now. So they have an established connection now. So all the activities, all the consumptions happening on this particular atom, the licensing will be calculated accordingly for the classified category you have chosen. So for the test category, the deductions will happen. Now you see a lot of different options over here. Some of the basic standard ones which give you a demographic information about your atom. So atom information, if you go, it gives you atom ID about of your particular atom. Pretty helpful in certain cases. Maybe we'll get to that later, but directly calling out your atom, directly finding out your atom is something you can do based on this ID. Type of the atom, status of the atom, like it is online right now, at times it is offline, it will give you a red mark, something like that here. Then classifications, test, instance ID, more around the VM names or the instances. Atom owner, the host name. Host name is this because we have selected an atom cloud route now. If you are sitting on a local atom, this is going to be something different. What machine you're using, and all those things. Date installed, versions of the atoms, and all those things. You get options to detach the atom from the environment and delete as well, but we're not doing right now. Log files, when you have executions happening within your atom spaces, a lot of logs are created. We call them container logs, atom logs, shared web server logs are more for the real-time integration scenarios, or where you are using your current atom executable space as a shared server as well. So basically in the scenarios when you're doing a listener activity, your particular atom will act as a listener and will listen to the files. You can understand it that way, but we can get into details of that later. But this term itself tells that your server is acting as a shared web server, so it is listening to some of the files, some of the things you are trying to send out. You can select your date and try to download your logs. AS2 artifact is more around the BTB integrations, so we'll get to that. Deployed processes gives you a list of what all deployments you have done on this particular atom, list of those. And once you have a list of those processes, there are certain other options which you can perform, like once you have a list of processes here, you can select a process. You can execute that process. You can add schedules for your particular process, like If you want to be running your integration every 1 hour, you can add those schedules. You can add your retry schedules. You can edit your process properties and dynamic process properties and other properties from here for that particular process. So different other options which you get to see once you have deployed process here. Then on the listeners tab, it will give you a list of all the available listeners underneath. Under this item, you can do different other options: restart, pause, and resume all those listeners. Item workers, we'll get in detail of this later. Queue management revolves around more on the advanced side of development. Or okay, I was just getting to Boomi stream. So yeah, Boomi streams are also something new which we'll cover in our curriculum. So this queue management is something pretty handy is in new set of designs where you kind of decouple your processes. You first produce a process, you just do the fetching or the receiving data type of activity. Then on the consumer process, you pick that process data from some intermediate source and then process thereafter. So that intermediate thing over here right now is the queue, and you have a lot of other different capabilities which we'll see later. Leave the certificates for now. Install libraries. It will give you a list of all the libraries you have installed for different connections. So like I was telling you, for certain connections, you need to install libraries. Once installed, that list will appear over here. Account properties, simple properties, standard properties, some of the things which are already appearing, some of the properties so basically it is like again a user GUI thing which is a capability given to us where we can directly provide the options over here. So let's say purge data immediately. There is nothing set up right now, but if I click on that, all the data sitting at the server level, it will be immediately wiped off, immediately purged off. These options, otherwise, these capabilities would have been available once you get into your VMs where you have installed the atoms. But rather than going over there, these are the capabilities, some of the capabilities which are given over here as a GUI in terms of properties. These are the basic ones, and then there are certain additional advanced as well, which you can plug in from here, select from here, and type of things you can do. We'll get more details later. Shared web server, again, the scenario where you're trying to do listener activities or your API activities or your listener HTTP calls, you will get along to select and do a lot of activities here. So like you have API type, basic, advanced, and intermediate. When you do the typical API management thing, you select advanced. That's what makes the server capable to do those things. So likewise, different other options here. We'll get along different authentication type, which depend on what all API type you have selected over here. URL of the Atom server, which you will give to your third parties from where you want your processes to be called out for listening activities. And that's how other things work here. ML server, leave for now. Counters, leave for now. What all we have here? So pretty much on atom management, we have seen how we create the environment, how we create the atom. One other thing on the environment side, you have extensions as well. Extension is basically an extended capability of the attributes of, for example, connectors you have built into your canvas. So what happens is, I'll give you a scenario where this comes useful. If you're not aware of, so let's say you have built a SAP connection or Salesforce connection. You're connecting to it for your requirements, but you have different instances of it. You have UAT, you have QA, you have production, you have sandbox for development, and you needed to connect to all these instances for different test cycles and everything. Now, there are ways to do it. You can either try to build separate component and give your attributes over there, and so separate component, I mean, you will create separate component for UAT, separate for QA, separate for dev and production, and make use of that in your processes and deploy to requested and anticipated Atom. What will happen in those scenarios if you have created 4 components to 4 of your instances and deployed that to one single Atom, you will consume 4 single licenses on a single connectivity, on a single Salesforce connectivity. But how extensions save you on that is you can create one single component to connect to, let's say one single component to Salesforce and one single component to SAP, and maybe give some placeholders within the required attributes at the build level. But at the extensions, you can give your selective attributes for different instances. So when you connect to QA Atom, you can give your QA attributes. When you connect to UA Atom, you can give your UA related attributes. So basically, you have created one single component only, but you are still able to connect to different instances of it. And in those case scenarios, only single license is being consumed for your particular connector activity or the license or the component. So that's where the extension is pretty handy, comes into picture. And then a lot of deployment or development effort also, it also saves you if you have extended something. So let's say there are cross references table you are using in your integrations. There are changes which you want to be doing in your cross references pretty regularly. So either you go back into build, edit your cross reference every time and do the deployment every time, or you can come back here if I have extended and just add your values in the cross reference table and you are good to go once you have saved it. You didn't needed any development edit on the component, rather you didn't need any deployment as well. So these are some of the benefits or extensions which are available here, which you make use on daily in and out activities. Then what else? Boomi Sure we'll get later. Process library we'll get later. Trading partner management we'll get later when we get on to the B2B management side of it or B2B integration side of it. It might be too early to jump on to understand right now, but I think that's pretty much we want to cover over in the platform to gain an understanding around. Leave it this labs for now. Resources. These are different other categories which you can make use of for certain standard documentation available with Boomi, which you can go through and understand if you have some challenges or if you have some clarification needed, you can go into documentation and try to achieve certain other things. There is a community for Boomi users and developers. You can get along there into community, ask questions, or respond to other folks as well if you have some good understanding or on certain things. Training and all, this is where you get for your certification requirements. You get along to those things and do your certifications and all. That is pretty much it on the integration core services related features we see. And that's pretty much our agenda also was for today. I know I have probably taken few things pretty much into details, but just take whatever you got out of it today if you are new to it. And having said that, I will give the time back to you to ask any questions if you have right now from the earlier session or from today's sessions also. I'm going to stop the share. I can see a lot of folks have dropped out already because of time constraints, maybe. So, yeah, Soumya, you're saying something.
Yeah, so I just want to know in a real-time project, will there be a molecule or an atom Or let's say generally on premise we have like a load balancer and two nodes running. So is it similar on um, with in terms of Boomi as well?
So you're asking in terms of this current course or in general?
In general, in real-time projects.
You can make use of both. It depends on your on any individual on any individual organization's infrastructure and the capability they have in. So there are scenarios when all the real times are happening, but the infrastructure hasn't evolved pretty high, or the loads are not so high, so they still continue to use the Atom capabilities. But there are organizations who are well established and they have, well established teams to take care of the infrastructures locally. So they establish their molecules as well, and make use of the all, header and the child nodes, all the load balancing activities and all. Moreover, it again depends on, how much is the load they are having. Depending on that, they see if, they will make use of internal load balancer thing, or they will move out to certain external load balancing capabilities. But it depends on the individual requirements from the organization, how evolved they are on the infra side, how evolved their teams, and based on that, they do it. But both of the options are usable. We can do on both atom on the and the molecule side.
So molecule is the clustered one, is it?
Right.
And atom is
Correct. Atom is a single machine, single VM machine, single executable space, but molecule is a cluster of nodes. So let's say you have 4 VMs which you have brought into picture, and you create a molecule. So you create a cluster of all those 4 molecules. And the way molecule works is it automatically or explicitly one of the cluster or one of the node is being assigned as a header node, and remaining will work as a child node. So there are certain admin capabilities, admin activities which that header node will take care of. For example, let's say Boomi is pushing some updates, and it will happen that systems will reboot by themselves, or even for certain reasons, for certain library pushes and all those things, you are enforcing a certain restart. So if you have a single atom, if you have forced a restart, the atom will go down, everything running will go down. If there are certain real-time scenarios, because the atom is down, no data will be received. But in the molecule type of scenario, because one is a header node and remaining are child nodes, so if you are pushing a restart, it doesn't happen that everything will went down altogether. The header node will take care of that. It will run in cycles to push those updates. So only one node will go down at a time, and remaining all will be up and will continue to receive messages, receive the data, process the data, and all those things. So this is where the molecule is very beneficial, and retaining uptime and all those things. So that's how it works, and on the cluster of nodes. Does that answers your question?
yes.
Okay, great.
And about the licensing, so does even even the connections also would incur some licensing costs? So basically, how is the licensing? I mean, when we have to code, what all do we have to keep in mind to make sure uh, we're not increasing the licensing cost?
So, from a molecule perspective, we will understand in more detail little later. But from an atom perspective, or from a molecule perspective also, it doesn't happen that if you're uh, deploying something to a molecule, your licenses will be consumed in calculation of the number of clusters or the nodes you have. So it doesn't work this way. We'll understand that calculation later, but from the atom side, the calculation happens, it depends on the number of atoms you are deploying it to. Or let's say if you have multiple atoms associated with your environment, in those scenarios as well, it will be calculated based on number of, atoms you have associated. So on the atom, it is clear-cut calculation. It depends on number of atoms you have deployed it to. On molecule side, it doesn't work directly on the calculation that if molecule or the cluster has 4 nodes or 5 nodes, so the consumption will happen or reduction will happen based on the nodes you have in place. It doesn't work that way. To close your confusion, but detailed calculation or understanding will gain maybe sometime later in the week or curriculum. But I think that should answer your question.
Yeah, sorry, I have one more question.
Sure.
So is the number of connections, let's say, we are connecting to both Salesforce and let's say some other system, is it directly proportional to the licensing cost, or it's not at all related?
It is. So if you're using two and different endpoints in your a single integration and you have connected it to one environment, one atom. So because your integration has two endpoints and you're deployed it to one atom, it will consume two licenses in this case for Salesforce and for SAP. Now, thereafter, it is your standard practice and then design approaches how you keep a limit on that. Like I was just mentioning, you make use of extensions, you may make use of standard approaches towards your connections. So thereafter, it is your design approaches, it is your standard practice, adaptability to save or to control license consumption. But if you have two new endpoints in your connection, deploying to one single atom, that will consume two licenses.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool.
So Manoj, one quick question. So basically licenses are being consumed on connected level, right? Means how many connector we are creating for different endpoints. So that depends how many licensing will be used. But it's not depends on atom, right? Atom or molecule. Means how
So
the basic unit is connector, correct?
yeah,
If I have
the initial triggering point is definitely connector. It will try to figure out if that has been already consumed or not, or I would say the component ID. So if you have in any component of yours, there are IDs to every component. So that will it basically relate to. So triggering point is yes for sure on any component or any connector, but thereafter it depends on your, again, like I was mentioning, in your design approach and standard practice adaptability. It doesn't happen that if you are building 5 integrations and you're using the same connector within your 5 integrations, deploying to the same environment, it doesn't happen that your 5 integrations will consume like 5 different or 10 different licenses, because you created a single component, let's say Salesforce and SAP, to my example. You created single component and the same connection you're using in your 5 different processes. So now your single component, your single component ID was already being used for the license deduction, and it is being used again now for the same attributes, not the changed attributes. It will consume only one license. But if, let's say, you create another component, like I was mentioning, for example, you created another Salesforce connection for connecting to production or to UAT, another component altogether, and that's what you deploy to another atom, that will consume the licenses in this case now, because your attributes has changed, your component ID has changed now. But if you continue to use your existing earlier component and you make use of your extensions and deploy and update the extensions for production side, it again will not deduce any additional licenses, because license has already been consumed for that particular component and the component ID. So that's how it works. True that triggering point is connection. Atom, it definitely comes also into picture. And let me tell you how. If you deploy the same component to 2 different atoms, it will consume 2 different licenses. To 4 different atoms, it will consume 4 different licenses per single component. So 1 component, 1 atom, it is 1 license. 1 component, 2 different atoms, it will be 2 licenses. So component and then to the atom. This is how the calculation works.
So is it really possible that to configure one single component for multiple different endpoints?
Absolutely. I was telling you about the extensions. We'll see that in detail in upcoming classes, but to give you an idea, let's say you have created one Salesforce connection, an SAP connection, you build your integration, you have deployed it to your particular environment. And let me go take you back again. Data management and test environment. So now you see this environment extension here. I've started to share my screen again. Now you see this environment extension option here. This is when it comes into picture where you start to use your different environment level attributes to connect to. So we'll get into that more detail, but yeah, to what you're saying, that is controllable, and that's how it works. Otherwise,
And
yeah.
sorry, please go ahead.
Now I was saying otherwise it would have been a lot of confusing and a lot of cost effective to consume single license per instance, per attributes, and per user and things like that. Yes, Omi.
So if we have, let's say, single connection and we are doing 2 different operations, let's say Salesforce, we are doing insert and update, still it would be one cost, right?
Right.
Or
It
is it?
is, and that is very true. It is irrespective of the actions you are performing. It is just based on the connection component and the component ID. So whatever because if when you establish your connection, there are 2 components to it. When you try to connect to any endpoint, one is the connection component and then is the operation component. So if if you have some idea on the Boomi side, when you establish your endpoint, there is one attribute when you create your connection, and the another is when you create your operation. So they two are separate. So operation is separate thing altogether, and the licensing thing is irrespective of whatever operation you are wanting to perform.
And one more thing, in all this UI which you showed, is there anywhere where we can reprocess? Is there a capability to reprocess or resubmit the transactions?
Yes, it was there. I think I have shown you as well. So when you go to process, so there are multiple ways to achieve it. Under your atom management, under your deployed processes, when you have a list of deployed processes here, you can rerun your transactions from here as well. Rerun your things. But to be more specific to your case, when you go to process reporting, one of the options which you have here, execute process, you can run from here to rerun specific field execution or specific documents set. When you have executions appearing here under this list, you can go to a specific execution. You can select the document set, and there you get the options to rerun that particular document, either in test mode or either in particular atom where it has already ran. So yes, there are capabilities to do that more than we are thinking of. But yeah, we'll get back. I mean, we'll see that later when we have ran some executions and we'll have that list here. But Yes, that capability is there, and it's very widely used in debugs and in rerunning transactions. So it is there.
Hello, Manoj. This
Uh,
is Ranjit. So sorry to interrupt. So Soumya, do you want to go?
yeah, I just have one last question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, you can go ahead.
That's okay.
So, I'm asking in from web methods perspective, what we do in the cache block, we actually have to explicitly, do something to basically put it either in a DB or something to reprocess. But will this be correct if I say in Boomi we don't have to explicitly do that? Boomi will take care of that.
There might be scenarios where if something has, so there might be stages in your integration where, for say, you are targeting 3 different end systems. Two end systems has went fine, and one of the end system has errored out. So in this particular scenario, you might not be wanting to run the whole document set again, because you might duplicate the data in the 2 other end systems where it has went fine already. So there might be scenarios where you might want not to be doing it directly, and you might want to try other ways out. But yeah, otherwise overall, it is clearly doable from Boomi. You need not do anything explicit. So, and sometimes it depends on your design as well, which we'll understand, in detail later. But moreover, from error reportings, you should be able to rerun your transactions again without explicitly doing much of the things around. There could be a couple of things which you have done at the design level to gain more control, and you might want to update those things from the properties, but very seldom you needed to go back and pull things from cache or pull things from document and place that back into some end system to reprocess it. Very seldom it happens based on, again, certain design and way we have done it, but most of the time, you should be able to achieve that from process reporting itself.
All right, yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Ranjit.
Yep. So my question regarding for EDA, so as per the course content, so you are covering up as inbound operation. So will you mean covering up of outbound as well, like MySQL to getting the generating as a EDA extol file in order to send to different connection method likewise?
It should be there. Let me just read it. So yeah, inbounds will also be there. Maybe not 100% matching to your scenario, but it will be there. So like you see here, build database inbound process, although it is written as inbound, but ultimately you're sending something, to some end system as well. Let's go more.
Yeah, I mean, I saw regarding for the test three and Salesforce kind of things, but in relevant to EDA B2B, so it's just one way of flow, like getting the transaction file and making an entry on that MySQL database. So I just curious to like, will you cover up the outbound as well?
Outbound to any other end system is what you're saying?
Yes. Yep.
I'll just take a look again if there is nothing like it, and you have a specific requirement or specific interest on it. We can try to cover something somewhere very quickly. That should be okay.
Okay, got it. And one more personal question to you. So like may you know, mean, what are the transaction sites and connection method, you have worked on in your relevant EDA experience?
In the EDA experience.
Yep.
I had worked on quite a few of these. So my transactions were revolving more around the supply chain and logistics. I worked on 204, 214, 990, 997, then 850, 856, 810, 860, 945, 940. So quite a few of these I have worked upon in my tenure so far.
Okay. I mean, what are the transactions we going to cover up here?
Over here, we are just covering 850 because we're not going into transactional details. What we
Mhm.
will try to understand is how things flows when we get into the EDI or the B2B side of world. What all different capabilities you have in there. So even if you cover one transaction from there,
Mhm.
it should walk you across different capabilities, different options, and different things you have in place, which you can incorporate into your different other transactions you will be working upon. So you will be easy, you will be able to relate and understand how do you do things around to, let's say, import your EDI profile structures, how do you build your trading partners, and all those capabilities you will be able to make out of it after this engagement.
Yep. Okay. I mean, mostly I worked on that motor carrier load tender, so which is 204, 214, and 210 and 990, 997. So those kind of things. So I never get chance to work on that order to cash, which is 850, 855, 856, 810. Something kind of things. So, I mean, I'm just curious to at least to cover up like inbound and outbound operations such as 850 or 855, something like that. So, I mean, in real time, I mean, how to integrate like in Dell Boomi. So, we will.
Actually, if we try to add much more to it, then this particular content will might go pretty long. Uh,
Mhm.
the intent was here to just, get to understand what all capabilities we have in that B2B side of world. If you are interested into more of these, maybe we'll try to build up something separately for based on that. Your different transactions you have you wanted to go through, or you can check with the team as well if they want to incorporate more onto this,
Mhm.
which will add up to the time frame. You can just check with them also. But my gut feel is that because if you try to add more to this content, some of the things will get limited or the content will flow across, further more to, because I think this is already 4 to 6 weeks. So it will,
Okay.
it will flow down further.
Got it. So I'm just asking, like, I mean, we not to cover all the transaction sets. So instead of that, one inbound and one outbound. So for inbound, you picked up 850. So in similar case for the outbound, either 810 or 855, 856. I mean, which will work for you. So in that case, I mean, mostly we will cover, I mean, ED to MySQL and vice versa, MySQL to ED, right?
Okay. I understand your point. Let me check on that and let me get back on this, or maybe let me check on this and then you can check with the team.
Sure.
They'll help you out if you know how what we have decided.
Okay.
Sure. All right. Well above the time. If we have no more questions, then uh, good to wrap up. And thank you for taking your time out. Thank you for showing the interest. Thank you for the great and the good questions. And hope to see you on Monday to continue on this curriculum and the content forward.
Yes. Thank you, Manoj.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks,
And
Manoj. Have a good weekend.
you too have a good weekend, all of you.
Yeah,
Take care.
thanks, Manoj.
Bye.
Thanks to
Bye.